Let's talk about someone who is trying to decolonize the African continent. Ibrahim Traoré has been at the core, really, of someone who is doing something from the African continent. What do we need to know about Ibrahim Traoré from his early childhood or from his early life that has made him to be who he is today?
Well, March 14th, 1988, the day that Ibrahim Traoré was born, I would hope that more and more Africans on that particular day would just pause to reflect a bit. Now, let me, at this juncture, address the people who usually say, hey, DJ, are you obsessed by Ibrahim Traoré? My answer is simple. I am obsessed with transformative leadership. I'm totally obsessed by transformative leadership, which is why I am then obsessed by extension with Thomas Sankara, now Ibrahim Traoré, Patrice Lumumba. And the common denominator that those three have is that they all became leaders in their mid-20s, 34, 33 years old there. Why I mention that is Africa is the most youthful continent. So the young people of Africa must then realize that there is no excuse. There is no excuse. Like in Kenya, Kenyans can no longer blame Odinga. They can no longer blame Musyoka. You have to look in the mirror, especially if you're young, and then blame yourself. Because if 2027 reaches, and then Kenyans again vote for more of the same, yet the youth of Kenya are the most populous. The biggest electoral bloc in the country, in Kenya, is the youth. And it's the same story across Africa. So I'm giving that context because let us not forget the fact that he was 34 years old on September 30th, 2022, when he took over the reins of leadership. And people need to realize that for him to even somehow engineer that entire movement within the army to then be able to defeat his military superiors. Because remember, the guy who was president at the time, a guy called Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, that guy was also a military, but way higher in rank, military rank than Traoré. He had taken over on January 24th of the same year. So you have a case where your senior in the military is the president. You have a case where not only are you 34 years old, but you're a captain, you're way below in military rankings. Not just that, Brian, but you're also located in a town called Kaya, 100 kilometers away from Ouagadougou, where the action is, where the seat of power is. So for him to somehow, despite all those things, engineer that movement, lead that movement within the army, that then on that day of September 30th, his good friend, a guy called Captain Farouk Sorgo, was able to announce, if you look at that video, the guy who is announcing, it's not even Traoré, it is this guy, Captain Farouk. Yeah. Now, for him to work closely with all these people and to actually take over power says a lot about the leader that he is. Now, for those of you who may be quick to say that, that was just a coup d'etat, try organizing. Try organizing one yourself. Yeah, that's when you'll realize that if you don't lose your life instantly, because by the way, the Constitution of Kenya is very clear on how a president should be replaced. Yeah. So for the record, I am not saying on the Organic Guys podcast that Kenyans should organize a coup. No, we're only saying that it was not easy for Traoré to do what he did. And we are then saying that one of the inspirations that Kenyans should draw from that is what I call a ballot revolution. Kenyans have to ensure that come 2027, they also have a ballot revolution that the Constitution allows. Because after 5 years, this duration that the president is in office, Kenyans should realize that the same way that Traoré, young as he was able to organize this massive movement that delivered presidency to his bosom that day, that you too, however young you are, however old you are, as long as you're going to decolonize your mind, you too can organize yourselves in such a manner that come election day, the kind of leaders, all the way from the president to the members of county assemblies, in the 1,450 wards in Kenya, there's no reason why they should not be transformative leaders. And that is what I'm obsessed with. So, if you're a Kenyan and you're watching this, you should ask yourself, do you want to do what Traoré did and put yourself up to be elected as president of Kenya? That is a constitutional means of doing it. And if not, who are you going to support? Because if you'll just perpetuate this perennial support for the same old guard, that they're basically cut from the same cloth, then, you're part of the problem. There are people who are now saying that if he's that popular, why doesn't he call for elections? And the answer to you is that nearly half of Burkina Faso is under the control of jihadists. Imagine if Kenya, nearly half of Kenya, was not even under government control. How on earth can you organize elections when nearly half of the country cannot even vote in those elections? Now, if you go ahead and pose the question, but he took over claiming that he was going to get rid of this insecurity and the jihadists, 2 years down the road he hasn't done that, you need to realize that there was a time, Brian, when the United States of America was supporting Osama bin Laden, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. They were supporting him because the Mujahideen was fighting against the Soviets at the time. And why I remind people that is, those jihadists that you're seeing, they are not just fighting for themselves. They also have support behind the scenes. And history has already shown that there have been times when the West has supported the jihadists of that time because of ulterior political reasons, ulterior economic reasons. So, if Traoré is essentially, if Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are essentially fighting puppets, yes, these jihadists have their own grievances, but if also part of that is that they are becoming puppets to another agenda, then how on earth is he supposed to beat that? You see? So Africa must smell the coffee and answer the question, how can we stand with Burkina Faso? Even if you don't like Traoré, how can we stand with the people of Burkina Faso, the people of Niger, the people of Mali, so that they can once and for all root out this jihadist tumor that is really, really leaving them in a very disadvantaged state.